glad that they ran roughshod over the Cowboys, but it came at a bit of a cost, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but first my heart breaks, and then it feels gut-wrenching, like Spinny said, and then for whatever reason, I thought about his family and flannel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm being as real as I
Yeah.
can
No,
because
I know.
it is. It's a sad thing. This is somebody who, you know what I mean? As fans and as people who cover this stuff, we've seen the ups, we've seen the downs, and you've been somebody that's been really consistent with how you're going to make sure you portray him. And I'm just trying to be for real, man, with it.
Yeah, and honestly, just from a fan's perspective, I'm going to say from my perspective as a fan, he's my favorite Michigan player of all time. He's my favorite Lions player of all time. So it really sucked seeing him go down. He went down, he broke his tibia while sacking Dak Prescott, which was pretty prophetic in and of itself. And the fact that he was still able to get Dak Prescott to the ground after his shin smashed into Ali McNeil, that was pretty. I mean, he's a warrior. He's an Iron Man, and let's hope for a speedy recovery. Prayers up to him. Prayers up to his family. It was certainly a gut-wrenching moment for all of us. But just as from the Lions' perspective, Aidan Hutchinson was the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. He was on pace to set the sack record, and now he's not going to be there for what looks like you could assume the season. I know I've heard some things, but probably the whole regular season, so it's going to be tough. He was the best player on the defense. He was, like I said, trending to be All-Pro, trending to potentially be Defensive Player of the Year, and it's a loss that is not going to be easy to. It's a void that's not going to be easy to fill. And I'll tell you what, the Lions, not to get into this too much, I don't think they have enough right now. I'll just say that.
The real K77, he said, I thought about flannel too. And Shawshank, he says, anyone from Ipsy in the chat need to whisper in Max Crosby's DMs for him to request a trade. I know that's where everyone's mind instantly goes when they saw, wow, everyone's minds was already there, you know, even before this injury. And now everybody's saying it's more or less a necessity. Obviously, to get an edge rusher, but before we get there, continue to process this Aidan Hutchinson loss, what it means to us personally as well as what it means to the team, because you're right. A lot of us on this platform are Michigan fans. All of us on this platform are diehard Lions and Aidan Hutchinson fans and supporters. You know, KG, Aidan Hutchinson, man. Just want to give you a chance to speak your piece on it.
Yeah, it's a tough loss. I mean, there's no, sugarcoating it or anything. You just hope this injury isn't something that it will affect him long term. Even when he comes back, having that type of injury, you just hope that he has some semblance of himself when he comes back. But I mean, in the interim right now, and I said this on the post-game show, and I wasn't trying to be a Debbie Downer by any means, but we don't have precedents, for the Lions to be in this situation. So I don't necessarily know how they'll handle it, because we know how they normally go out in the free agent market and in the trade market. They're very shrewd with their moves. So, I mean, not saying that they can't go out and get somebody. It is very possible. They have the cap space to go do so, and I do feel like they hung on to this cap space for this reason. Now, of course, you didn't think Hutch would go down. You maybe want to add something to complement Hutch, but in this situation, I do agree that they don't have enough. And if you're in a Super Bowl run, then, maybe you put a few more cards on the table than you normally would have. Go get somebody and make sure that this season isn't all for naught. But who knows, man? There's names floating around. Trey Hendrickson, maybe even Myles Garrett. We don't know. He could be somebody that you go after. Max Crosby. Everybody wants Max Crosby. I want Max Crosby, but don't know how realistic it is. But I trust that, this organization will make the right moves and keep us in position to win the Super Bowl.
JB Smooth. What up, though, brother?
Hey, man, what more can you say? Like, I was down at Ford Field when the injury happened. Everyone in the audience was still trying to, put together what they just seen. And you had people praying that he's going to be okay. It's just a stinger. It's nothing bad. I hopped on the internet as soon as I could to try and find any close-up videos that someone might have took of it. Found it, showed it to the people who were in front and behind me, and they just all fell back in their seats. They were devastated. I'm talking about grown men at Ford Field with Hutch jerseys on, just destroyed. They knew their favorite player was done and it was over with. But yes, I will have to agree with KG. I don't think we have enough in the tank to push us through to get to this Super Bowl. You need someone else there. I know the team rallied behind Hutch's injury to get this big win and keep the momentum going as much as they could. But, yes, you are going to have to look for someone else, an edge rusher out there. I know Max Crosby is the big name right now, but let's be realistic. I don't know if he's going to want to come here.
Then my question to everybody, including you, chat family, is this. Do you have the same expectations for the Lions following the Hutchinson injury? Because if they don't have enough, do we have to adjust those expectations? Or is this a situation where you have to cash in on this window? We said it before that the only thing that could slow this Lions team, as I continue to think about it, like logically on paper, what are they talking about? Of course they're going to get back. We said injuries.
I think this is a time where desperate times call for desperate measures. You have to make that move to make it so it's still Super Bowl or bust. Because don't get it twisted, it is still Super Bowl or bust. Windows like this don't last forever. And obviously one of the most devastating things that could have happened to hinder this Super Bowl window happened. And I get it. It's really, really tough. But as KG said, I'm not saying it's realistic, but like the Browns aren't looking so good, the Raiders aren't looking so good. I'm just saying, or even if there's just a move to be made at the trade deadline, you got to look into it. You have to throw every resource you can at it, because I'm looking at this team with an Aidan Hutchinson, with how dominant they looked both when he was in there and when he was out, but certainly when he was in, where they built up a 34-6 lead and thought this is the best team in the NFL. Not even the Chiefs. The Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFL at that time. Yeah. At that time.
It still counts. I'll take that.
No, for sure.
That's worth 50 victory laps.
For sure. But without Aidan Hutchinson, and I'm not trying to sound doomsday, I'm not even sure they win the division. If they don't replace him adequately. The Vikings are 5-0, the Packers are 4-2, and the Bears are 4-2.
That's steep.
But it's a tough division. It's a tough division.
I don't know if I'm ready to
say that. Aidan Hutchinson.
I'm not there yet. I understand that we have to account for the fact that Aidan Hutchinson is a loss, and he's a big loss. He was looking like one of the top 5 players in football this year, man. And I feel like that's even underrating him just a little bit with the impact he was having. Like, you have a bye week and you're still leading the league in sacks after some guys had some pretty good weeks. But to me, this is where Aaron Glenn, who has made up for a lack of personnel in the past, this is where Terrell Williams. This is where you have these guys and some of the small depth pieces that we talked about that we wanted to see out of guys. I don't know why James Houston is yet again another healthy scratch, but this is where I at least from the internal component, because you do have to do something external, but from at least the internal, I do believe that they're a little bit better insulated than, say, if this was last season.
They are, but I see a lot of people in the chat, including intern Chase, Sam overreacting like usual. Here's the thing. Let me ask you this question, guys, because I'm not saying this out of joy or out of glee or out of trying to be right. Are the Lions currently leading the division?
No.
No, they are not. How far behind
That's not their fault, though, but.
How far behind?
They haven't played the NFC.
I understand that.
I mean, NFC North.
I understand that. How far behind are the Packers and the Bears? Half a game.
How far behind?
Is Aidan Hutchinson your best defensive player? Yes. Was he leading the NFL in sacks? Yes. Is Marcus Davenport also out for the season? Yes. Is John Kaminsky also out? Yes. I'm not trying to be doomsday, but right now I'm looking at a James Houston who can't even touch the field. I'm looking at a Josh Pascal who is, let's just face it, he's Josh Pascal. I'm looking at maybe Levi O playing edge. I'm looking at Isaac Uku, and I'm thinking, that's our edge rushers. That's who's going to get after the quarterback. That's why I think Brad Holmes will be more aggressive and he will do something because it is a Super Bowl window. I'm just saying that the people who are acting like, it's fine, next man up. I've even seen somebody like Byrne be a clown and be like, the defense actually might be better in the long term without Aidan Hutchinson. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I don't know what problem.
Aidan Hutchinson was going to win Defensive Player of the Year, and now he's gone. At least for this season, for the regular season, he's gone.
I was waiting.
Wiped off the face of the earth, and people are like, that's fine. No drop-off. What are you talking about?
I've been scouring the chat, and I found one person who agrees with you.
Okay.
Tracy CC123. Flannel was right. Without Hutch, the Lions are going to struggle, and I hope I'm wrong. That's where I do have to push back just a little bit. You're going to definitely feel the miss of Aidan Hutchinson, but you got to scheme something up. You got to take what you have right now, because just as we want Hutch to step up to the next level, we want Aaron Glenn to take the next level as a coordinator. We want other players on this squad to take that next level. they're going to have to do something to pick up their brother, because if this was boom or bust on simply Aidan Hutchinson, then this was not the contender that we thought that they were coming into the season. Of course, Aidan Hutchinson pushes them over the edge, but this is a squad to me that when you wear that Detroit, because they decided to put that Detroit across their chest this year, that comes with a little bit different grit and grime that does defy logic. There's a certain resiliency that goes with that, and I know we're talking more intangibles, but that is a part of sports. This squad, I do believe they have internally enough to resiliently overcome. And I'm not saying it's going to be something easy, but as it relates to the NFC North, I don't believe that this division is in question for the Detroit Lions. As it relates to their long-term Super Bowl hopes, I do believe that those are a little bit more in question, but that, to me, at that point in time, depends on what Brad chooses to do to be able to bring in the necessary support, or what this squad does internally to take some big leaps forward. There are people we thought were going to do that just haven't up to this point. If they take even a marginal step forward, you do have a little bit more than I think people believe right now.
That's fine, but there's no Aidan, and I just,
You're right.
I don't want to. I don't want to undersell that, and I see people are really, really upset that I hated on Josh Paschal. I'm not hating on Josh Paschal. You can even say that he's been fine and that he played well yesterday.
Yeah.
But I don't want Josh Paschal to be counted on as somebody who needs to get 8 to 10 sacks, because that's not who he is. As like your number one edge rusher. I'm not down with that. And
you're getting more support in the chat.
Well,
Terrell from FL, he
yes.
said, that's BS Kool-Aid. Reality is going to hit you guys in the face on Sunday when we play a real team. I'm not saying that you're not going to feel the miss of an Aidan Hutchinson. What I'm saying is, if this team is not equipped with players that can step up when you lose somebody, then what team are we talking about?
Exactly.
And if fans are going to be in the chat promulgating that, what are we talking about? No, because the makeup of your team has to be that. Whether those guys are good enough or not,
He's speaking
the makeup
facts.
of your team, from the players to your front office to your coaches, has to be that. Or otherwise, Dan Campbell don't stand up there on the podium and say, next man up. Don't do that, period. You got to find a way to overcome. You just have to. It's going to take a combination of things, and I agree with that. Are you going to see the effects of losing a Hutchinson? Yes, because teams are going to scheme differently against your defensive front now. That's where you're going to have to take the opportunity to say, you know what, this is what we're going to do better. This is what we're going to do different. This is how we're going to counteract. You have to. If you're telling me fold up the cards and go home right now, that's where I just kind of push back a little bit.
No, and I'm not saying fold up the cards. I'm saying what I said at the beginning was not, the Lions aren't making the playoffs, they're not going to win the division. What I'm saying is that I think an Aidan Hutchinson loss can potentially swing things, or maybe swing a game or two to where they don't win the division. And I'm saying that also because they're not even leading it right now. The Vikings are, and they're in the toughest division in football.
True, but
that's all I'm saying.
I could care less about the NFC North. It's all about getting to the playoffs and the long-term window for a Super Bowl. Now, the good teams find a way, and Kool-Aid, I feel like you spot on with that, because that's just the reality. You know, we can sit up here and blame, Hutch if things go wrong down the pipe. We can sit up here and, hey, Hutch, we lost us for the season in week 6. Yeah. But it's not going to matter. The good teams find a way, and the mission is still the mission, getting the playoffs, winning the playoffs. The division, I would love to have it, but it doesn't sway me like that. I'm really more concerned about what the long-term window looks like in a deep playoff run, and that's where I feel like you were spot on.
And so you believe for the Lions, at the most part, you want to see that internal growth. And I do agree with Flannel. I don't want to undersell the loss of Aidan Hutchinson mixed with the loss of another edge and some other help on that defensive line. That I don't want to undersell. I don't want people to think that that's something I'm understating. But I'm more or less to what we were talking about. Like, there has to be something internally that can kick it up just another notch. And then obviously Brad Holmes, he's gonna have to do something. They left themselves with flexibility, like you talked about, and there are some potential options out there, like you and KG have talked about. I know, I think all three of you, including Spinney, are probably in lockstep with Hendrickson.
Oh, dude! And speaking of teams that are struggling, the Cincinnati Bengals, and those are the type of guys that Brad Holmes should be on the lookout for. Teams that are looking to dump some salary that maybe have underperformed, like the Cincinnati Bengals, like the Las Vegas Raiders, like maybe the Cleveland Browns. And I get it; those are maybe high in the sky. But
yeah,
all I'm saying is that I expect Brad Holmes to make a move, but I think if he doesn't, that there's not enough on the defensive line, at least when it comes to the edge rusher position, because rushing the quarterback is one of the most important things you can do in all of football.
And I think that's where all of us, that's what we've all agreed. That JB, you too, man, before we get into this next segment, is that where we all agree that whether it's a division or not, we can all argue about that, but this year was about a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And we do agree, all of us agree here, the loss of Hutch. Plus, I don't want to downplay. I've seen DNC and other people in the chat. I don't want to downplay the losses here. We can't do that. We can't. Hutch is the greatest, and then when we lose him, Hutch is. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, but they're still a playoff team even without Hutch.
But we all agree that they're Super Bowl right now.
Yeah.
That's something that if Brad does nothing, we don't believe that they have enough.
Well, and yes, and I promise for the rest of the show, we're going to be waxing poetic about everything that the Lions did, both when Hutch was in the game and when he was without. Before we get to that, though, I want to read this $10 super chat from Byrne. Thank you very much, because I called him out a little bit, but you know what? To his credit.
A little bit?
No, to his credit.
Just a little bit, just a smidge.
Just a little bit. To his credit. All right, Sam, let me clarify. I said in the long term because Holmes will get a real edge talent, and when Hutch returns next year, we will be elite. Yeah, it is cope. That's all we can do, Sam. I'm hurt. And you know what, Byrne? I respect that. I don't blame anybody for coping right now. I'm coping to some degree. And you guys might think that I'm taking the train to negative town. The only thing that I want to impress upon you guys is that you can talk about next man up, you can talk about culture and guys playing above themselves, but Aidan Hutchinson was tracking to be a top 10 player in all of the NFL and the defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
That's a big loss.
Yeah.
Best player on
You
your
can't
defense.
understate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not just best player. Heart and soul, and voted the captain.
Yeah.
You don't just replace that. You try and find a way to make do.
Yep. And, hey, the Jacksonville Jaguars, another team, hey? We'll take some salary off your hands. And I think I forgot who else Theo, Zadarius Smith. When we're talking about the Browns, it doesn't just have to be Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
You can. I mean, I get it. It doesn't move the needle, but it doesn't move the needle like one of the big dogs. But
I'll take him.
It'd be better than what we currently have. He'd be the best player. He'd be the best edge rusher on the team immediately.
Facts.